Welcome and thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Any of the cards that I make, all the supplies are Stampin' Up! Related unless I mention otherwise, but 99% of everything I use is Stampin' Up! Related and can be purchased through my online store. And I do appreciate your support on that because when you purchase through me, it supports me in a job that I absolutely love. And today we're going to be working on some cards that you can send to your friends that are also stuck in quarantine. I've said for the last few weeks, it's just been a godsend that I have so many Stampin' Up! Supplies because that's what I've spent my time doing. It is such a stress reliever. And I feel that if I send cards to others, that maybe those cards that they get in the mail may decrease some stress for them as well. And so one of the things I came up with was this little card here. And this is using our Back on Your Feet stamp set. And I made it as an easel card, so once you send it, they can prop it up and display it in their home to show others. And then my super creative friend, Lori Healing, came up with something similar to this. She did the little pig and an oval with some different backgrounds, but I copied her idea on the pig to do this little one with the mask. So we're going to be doing the two cards today. So let's go ahead and get started with today's cards. Let me move you down to my workspace. Let's start with the first one. This is an easel card that you can send to your friends. It uses the Back on Your Feet stamp set. And you'll notice there's only one giraffe and he only faces one way. And I've got two on here and they face different directions. And so that's one of the things I'm going to show you today is how I made that flip the other way. I also, on the inside, I used this Miss You Friend. That's 3 different stamps. And I used them out of the Well Said bundle. This is only one case out of 2 in this bundle. So if you don't have the Well Said bundle, you're really missing out because this is one stamp set that covers numerous occasions. This has a lot of outside sayings and the coordinating box has inside sayings. And of course you can always mix and match. I used it on the Stamparatus because I have a tendency to like things to be lined up evenly, and the Stamparatus has these little grid lines on it that allows you to line up your stamps and make sure that you're straight across. And you can also like set a piece of paper underneath and kind of play with it until you've got it exactly where you want it. And then once I have this on here, then I can make multiples. And I wanted to make it where I could stamp it out onto this little shape. And so how I did that was, again, using the Stamparatus. I set this on the side. And then I already die cut the image that I want. And then I just die cut a whole bunch of the shape. And so then I can stamp it, pull this out, put another one in, stamp it. And then I only have to line up my words to get them straight once. And then I can make multiples. So that's an idea we're going to use. But let's start out with the pieces that we need today. And I have, of course, our card base. And this one is 5.5 by 8.5. I scored at 4 1/4, but then I also scored again at 2 1/8, and that's what's going to make it our easel card. And then on the inside, I have the layer that is 4 inches by 5 1/4, which is the same as our black. And this is going to be on the top layer. And then I've got 3 3/4 by 5. This is the layer we're stamping onto. And then I punched out soft suede at 1.5 inches, and then whisper white at 1 3/8. Excuse me. Allergies are getting to me. It's kind of freaky with all that cough stuff going around. I get worried and I have to remind myself, my eyes itch. It's allergies, I promise. So, for the first giraffe, what I'm going to do is grab my black ink. There we go. And I'm just going to ink up my giraffe stamp. and stamp down. Now, if it was not a good enough image, I can always re-ink and stamp again, but I'm fairly satisfied with that, so I can move that out of the way. And then this is our silicone craft mat that I have placed in here, and I'm going to stamp onto that. So I'm just transferring the ink from the Stamparatus to the craft pad. It's really light, so I'm going to do this some more. Give it more ink. And you can do this as many times as you feel you need to get, you know, a good image. But we'll call that good. Then I'm going to take this same piece and I'm just flipping it over. And then I'm going to set that down, and rubbing the back of this is going to pick up the ink that was on our silicone craft mat. And so that's how I got the two images facing one another. And of course I can clean this off, and if I had something else I can use the other side. But I'm going to go ahead and do this part. So I don't need this anymore. So there we go. I'm going to bring in my little template. And then on the bottom we have magnets. And I have wrapped mine in duct tape. I do that because that allows it to stick well using the magnet, but it also gives me something to pick up on. Hi Sharon, I miss you. I wish you could come over and stamp with me. We need to figure out a way to stamp on Zoom. Have you guys used the conferencing system Zoom? We used that with our friends Friday night. We all got online and talked to one another virtually. It was kind of fun. So I've inked up my Miss You friend with the soft suede ink. And then I can just stamp right into there. Now the first part's a little darker than the back side, so I'm just going to ink it up some more. This is where your stamping spots may come in very handy because they're smaller. Hi Carolyn, welcome. So here's our inside sentiment. And if I wanted to, like I said, I can continue stamping and stamping and stamping, and I've only had to align the stamps on here to make them straight once. So I can pull that out of the way. Now in order to do the sky and the grass down below, I just felt it needed a little bit of color. And so what I did is I took one of our stamping sponges and I cut it in each one into 6 pieces. And then I used the circle tab topper punch and I stapled a piece of cardstock onto the top. And so I have one in each of my colors so that when I get ready to stamp, I don't need to figure out which one's which. Now they are washable. You can take them in a sink and rinse them out. They will stain, but you can get all the color out of them and reuse them with whatever color you want. But because I do this so often, it just was easier for me to just label them. So I'm going to come in with the blue sponge and I'm just kind of going around the giraffe. Now you could go over it a little bit and it would be okay because you're going to color it with the Stampin' Blends, and the Stampin' Blends are usually darker than what we're sponging onto the background, so it won't make too much difference. But just to kind of be on the safe side, I'm just kind of angling it into the corners. I'm just very lightly stamping around them, or sponging, tapping, I don't know what you want to call this. And if I wanted to give a little more definition to the edge, you know, I can just drag this around the edge and that'll give it a little extra pop. I'll do that to the tag on the inside. Oh, and then our inside layer, we can spun on that as well. So how are you guys dealing with this whole quarantine thing? Have you found stuff to keep you busy? Stampin' Up! Is still shipping. We are lucky they have split everything into different shifts, and so they have a morning shift and a swing shift, and they've been able to place their workers a little further apart and work them on different shifts so that they can continue sending us our craft supplies. I've been reactivating a lot of my old classes. So if you have taken a class before where you just wanted the PDFs or the pre-cut materials, or maybe even wanted to buy the bundle and get those things for free, those are what's available on my website right now, since I can't hold live classes. And so we have those, and we also have kits. And so if you have some non-stamping friends that are going nuts, and you can say, hey, I have an idea for you. I know something that would help de-stress. And when you buy the kit with all the pre-cut materials, everything's kind of it's ready for you. You just kind of stamp and assemble. And that goes with the kits that I make up, as well as the all-inclusive kits that Stampin' Up! Has to offer. So we don't have to be bored. We can be crafting. Good, I'm glad you're sending out cards. Like I said, I think it's helpful in this day and age, you know, especially with everything going on. People need a little pick-me-up. I've heard on the news that domestic violence and suicide are on the rise because of all of this. And so it's much more important to be able to reach out to your friends and say, hey, you know, I'm still here and we can still talk and let's support one another, which is what I'm trying to do through stamping. Let's get the grass on this one. And I'm using Seaside Spray was the top for the sky, and this is Old Olive I'm using for the grass. You don't necessarily have to use those colors, but in case you were wondering what I had out, that's what I'm using. And then I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Blends. For the giraffe, I'm going to color him with the dark Daffodil Delight. His spots will be the light soft suede. His feet are a light basic black. Oh, and this is for our pig for the next card. So we can go ahead and get him colored. I'm going to use the smaller end because it is a smaller surface that I'm coloring into. Now I think if I had a little more time, I might use the two colors and blend it a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to use the one color. If you were going to do the two colors and blend them, Stampin' Up! Has already given you kind of a hint on where your shading would go with the black lines within the stamp. So their stamp designs make it easy to know where to add a little bit of shading. Now again, I'm going quickly, and so I am kind of drawing a little bit outside the lines, going into my spots. But because the soft suede is darker than the Daffodil Delight, it's not going to matter because I can just go straight over the top of it. I was talking to my daughter this afternoon, and she actually had a serious like upper respiratory infection back in early December, I think it was. It was after Thanksgiving, but before Christmas, and she was having a really hard time breathing and had to be on multiple antibiotics for an extended period of time. I mean, it was awful. And now that all of this is going on, we're kind of wondering if maybe she had a little bit of this coronavirus thing before we even knew what it was. So I'm hoping, I don't know for sure, but I'm hoping if she's already caught it, hopefully she can't get it again. Is that true? Has anybody heard? if once you get it, are you kind of immune? Have you built up antibodies? Her day job has her working from home, but her weekend job, she works at Albertsons, and she runs into the public a lot there. Luckily, they've put up the plexiglass, partitions between them, but she is still out there with the public, which of course makes a mama nervous. I mean, I'm very thankful for those people that are out there doing those sorts of things, that are out on the front line making sure that we can still operate, that we can still have groceries and medical services and all of that. But still, it makes a mama nervous. So again, I'm just coloring this really quickly. His spots I've got in soft suede, his body in a dark daffodil delight. I'll just finish up the one. I can do the coloring after I turn the camera off. You don't really want to sit here and watch me do all of this, do you? So we have this part done. So I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of this layer and mount it onto the basic black. And then, in order to mount it onto here, normally, if it was going to be a standard card, we would put adhesive all over the entire thing. But because I want it to be able to pop up, I only want adhesive on the bottom half. And so I have to kind of be careful not to put it on the top. Now you may have noticed I had a little bit of an ink smudge on the front of my card, but that's why we have layers. We can cover it up. Nobody will ever know. Okay, so there we go. There's my pop-up portion of my card. And so here's my inside layer. Again, 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then in order to make the front stand up, what I want to do is I want to adhere this sentiment on dimensionals, because it'll raise it up and it'll give it a little something to rest against. So I'm just going to come in with some Stampin' Dimensionals. Oh, and this little shape, this is cut out of the ornate frames. I don't know if you guys remember these from our holiday catalog, but they were with the little Halloween guys. And I'm not a big Halloween person, but when I saw these frames, I thought these are going to be able to use for all sorts of occasions. And true enough, I've been able to use them a lot. And they kind of nest one over the other. So it may not look like it exactly, but you could use this as a background to this one. And like this one would go into here. And so they do layer up really nicely and have lots of great little shapes. So I highly recommend those. So there we go. I just set that on there with some Stampin' Dimensionals. It gives it a little bit of a raised effect, so it's got something to rest up against, and it makes a great display card. The final thing I'm adding is the outside sentiment, because our giraffes have the little knot in their neck. We have this sentiment that says this is not good. So I'll just adhere that with regular adhesive and then pop a dimensional underneath. to pop this one up. And there you go. I hope you like this card and you give it a try. Oh, for the 6 feet in the middle, I just did that with the marker. I pulled out the standard, you know, Stampin' Right marker, and I put 6 feet. And actually, by accident, I put 6 inches the first time I made one. My husband had to point it out because I'm so used to writing directions in inches. So make sure it's 6 feet. You're staying apart from one another. Okay, card number 2 is this little piggy stayed home. Now this card uses the This Little Piggy stamp set and the layering ovals. And then for the little picket fence in the background, I used our delicate lace edgelets. I used this one in the middle. And you'll notice he's got a little face mask on. My super talented friend Lori Healing posted one of these the other day. I thought it was just so cute. So I started out my card with an 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. That's our standard card base. The inside again was 4 inches by 5 1/4. For the grass on the outside, I have 2.5 inches by 5 inches. And mine actually, my scrap was 6 inches, so I left it at 6 inches, and I'm going to trim it off afterwards so that I can make sure that it is exactly all the way across. And then I use my layering circle dies and my delicate lace edgelets. This one, the paper was 1 3/4 by 5.5. And then I use the 2 7/8 scallop and the 2 5/8 straight circle. This is on Petal Pink and this is Whisper White. And then I needed a scrap of white to do his little face mask. And then I needed a scrap to stamp his head, because the head is actually on there with Stampin' Dimensionals so that I could put the little mask on him. So we'll start assembling by putting our picket fence onto our grass. Oops. There we go. Okay, so now I can flush it up to this side and across the bottom, and then I can flip it over and trim from the back side. And that way I know that it fits exactly. For the little piggy, I stamped him in Smoky Slate. You can use basic black or the tuxedo black, or you can use the gray if you want it to be a little bit lighter. If you really want it to blend in, you could stamp him in the Petal Pink and then color him with Petal Pink, and he'd be all pink. It's really cute. So I stamped him once onto there, and then I'm going to stamp his head a second time, and I'm going to fussy cut that out. And I'm going to do that with our paper snips. The most important thing about fussy cutting is to remember to make sure your hand is comfortable and you're twisting the paper. It's easier to make the paper move than to hold your wrist at an uncomfortable angle. Okay, so this is the part that I'm going to put his mask onto. It's going to be about the right size. So I'm going to bring in my Simply Scored just because I want to put a couple little straight lines. Because if you've seen the little facial masks, they have little pleats in them. That's actually one of the things I've been doing a lot lately, is I've been making face masks. I heard the little, well, number one, you can't get the elastic anymore. It's kind of hard to find. And so I did it with ties, and it also won't irritate behind the ears. And then I've inserted a pipe cleaner into the top so it'll have the little part where the nose bends. So this is one for my daughter. They're coming out super cute, but they have those little pleats, and so that's what I'm doing with my scoring tool, is I'm making the pleats in the mask for a little piggy. And I'm cutting it really close to the top and bottom one so that his mask isn't too big. So, oops, I don't know if you can see the little lines in there. But just a little something. And then for the strings, I have some white baker's twine. And what I'm going to do is just, let's put some adhesive on here. And I did a couple swipes of it because I want it to be kind of thick. If you had larger glue dots, I mean, that might even be something you could use. But then I'm going to go corner to corner and snip this off, and then go corner to corner again. These are my paper scissors, so they're not cutting very well on fabric. That's another great tip, is that you want to make sure that you have separate scissors that you use for paper than you use for your ribbons and strings, because I don't know, they wear the scissors differently somehow. Okay, so done with our giraffe. For our piggy, like I said, I'm coloring him in petal pink. There's a little bit of dark, and then some light. And I don't have to do his nose because we're covering that up. We're going to set our little mask right across the front. So again, I'm going to want some kind of extra something to hold it on there, so let's grab a dimensional. Oh, we'll put that on the head. Let's put glue dots on here. I don't want to make him too thick. So now you're just going to arrange the little strings for his mask and wrap it around like he's got it wrapped on his head. Eek. And then I'm going to just adhere it on the back side. There's probably a cleaner way to do this. But I can't think, film, and come up with great ideas all at the same time. Okay, so we just want to basically tuck it behind and then trim off the excess. See, my fabric scissors worked much easier. Those were some scissors Stampin' Up sold a while back. I love them. I wish they'd bring them back. Okay, so there's our little piggy with his mask. Then we can color him on here. I'm going to give a little shading with the dark. Then come in and finish him off with the light. The trick to blending with the Stampin' Blends is to do them while they're still wet. And if they're not blending well, continue to lay down more ink until it's good and wet. And that's where it's going to make the best blend. And don't worry that you're using too much, because it's totally normal that it's all going to bleed through the back. Some people even lay down so much ink that they have to have something on their surface to catch that excess ink. While I have my sponges out here, let's give them a little sky and some grass. There we go. Just get his hooves down here with the black. And then we're ready to add his second little face, just right over the top. And so what that's going to do is it's going to hide the strings behind his head. Doesn't that come out cute? I've also seen people put little masks on our little people too. They come out super cute. But Lori was the first one I saw actually use the twine and have straps on it, so I thought that was really cute. Okay. So there you go. There's the outside of card number 2. For the inside, like I said, I always put a little something in there. And there's lots of little additional things that you can stamp in there. This is one of our older cling mounts, and so I have to come to hold it down to make sure that it sticks well. If you use our new Stampin' Up stamps, they are stickier. They're cling mount. These are clear mount. Sorry, clear mount. I'm just bringing in a little baby wipe because I'm gonna try not to stamp the little words on here. I just want to stamp the pig and the underside. So I'm trying to selectively ink. Another way you could do it is you could cover that part with masking tape while you ink it up and then peel that off. But see there, I'm able to stamp him without the little words that went with it. Some people cut apart their stamps. That idea freaks me out. I couldn't do that, but some people can. Have you guys all seen my new Creativity Realm? I created a new Facebook page or a group where I'm trying to get you guys to share the things that you create. And then every month I'm going to be giving something away to one of those people who posted. Because I really want to see what you guys are doing. I want to know that the stamps that you're buying you're using and that you're coming up with some cute stuff. People are kind of afraid to show their things because they're saying, oh, I'm not as good as you. Well, that's not necessarily true. We're all our own worst critic. And I think if you just shared a little, it would help keep everybody in brighter spirits, and you might win some fun stuff. So make sure that you request to join that. If you have trouble finding it, you can usually find it from my page or send me a message and I'll make sure to add you. See, I try to be quick with the coloring, but it's so fun. You kind of get lost in it. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Like I said, the more people I can get to shop with me, the more things I can do for you guys. And again, I don't want you buying stuff you're not going to use. I want you using your supplies. And so if you ever buy something and you are lacking ideas, or you know, you need some inspiration, let me know. That's what I'm here for. I love to give tips and tricks and help you use your supplies and make yourself less stressed, and then pass on some smiles to someone else. So there's the inside of my card. I haven't decided what I'm going to stamp in the middle yet here, but we do have lots of fun stamps with sentiments that will go great for this little piggy. Oh, almost forgot. There's one more little thing. I wanted to say this little piggy stayed home, and I didn't have a stayed home. And so what I did is I got onto my computer and I printed it out. And then all I have to do is come in with my punch and punch it out. Now I did this in, I think it was 18-point font, but if you want, you can just let me know and I'll send you the PDF file. I mean, it's simple enough. It only took me a few seconds to pop it in there, but that allowed me to create a sentiment that I did not have. Now I don't have time to do that with all of my things, that's why I have stamps, but when I don't have something and I really want it, I do back up to my computer days and print it out on cardstock. So this was printed on Whisper White cardstock and punched out with a Stampin' Up punch. And I'm using Stampin' Dimensionals on the back. And there you go. This little piggy stayed home and stayed 6 feet away. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed today's cards. Again, if you need any inspiration or advice with your stamping things, feel free to reach out. You know, that's what I'm here for. I love my job, and part of that job is helping you guys. So thanks for joining me, and if you need anything, all of the supplies are available in my Stampin' Up store, and I will see you next Monday right back here at 2:30 for some more stamping fun. Thanks. Bye.